look any place without finding tips on social media, on how to use SEO, or some other kind of information about this phenomenon. With all of the stuff top of mind, what have you taken away about social media? What does social media mean to you? That's a question. What does social media mean to you?
Facebook.
Facebook. And what is it about Facebook? What have you learned about social media?
I can interact better with my friends. Also provide some indirect contact because I can still know what they do without actually calling and talking to them, which could be a bad thing, could be a good thing.
Very interesting. It's an opportunity to keep in touch with your friends and know what they're doing even though you're not seeing them all the time.
Use it as a networking opportunity.
Absolutely. Turns out to be a whole new channel for networking.
Absolutely.
Cool. What else? And what have you learned about social media?
Well, and speaking of Facebook, I like Facebook, but then sometimes some people want to be your friends that you don't want to be friends with.
You create a special group of
And
friends.
It's great. I agree it's great for networking, but it's also I have like a plus and a negative thoughts about it. It could be good and it could be bad. But if you're doing it for business specifically, it's great.
Well, I think people have a lot of different experiences with social media. And certainly, everybody has different pluses and minuses. But for me, there's something very interesting about the business case of social media. I think the real point is that people like to connect with people. Now, that shouldn't be too surprising. Think of your mother. Your mother thinks you walk on water, right? Well, the smaller your community, like your family, the more valuable you are in that little community. And that's a sort of exciting relationship, to be valued amongst your in-laws, your blood relatives. And then as you reach out a little bit further, if you think about this, you've got all the people that are your neighbors or people that you've met in your career and your friends. And yeah, you have a nice relationship with them too, and they value you. And building on this, even further, moving afield, you have the opportunity to reach out to people that are maybe in your trade association or in your industry, and they value you too, because they get to know you. And if you're really into this, you could actually extend yourself into the world at large and be thought of as a valued thought leader. And they would value you there too. What I find interesting about this, as a takeaway, is that social media makes a business case for being able to reach out to people in a very cost-effective way. What's really important is that you can apply this in a business environment. In fact, social media might just be a really low-cost client acquisition model. Because you see, customers aren't statistics. Customers are human. Isn't it nice to be able to have friends that you like and that value you? Wouldn't it be nice if you had the same relationship with customers? Customers who value your relationship. So I think that there's something very interesting as a business takeaway from the concept of social media. Specifically, if the 20th century was the era of product-centric connections, then the 21st century is the era of customer-centric relationships. Let me explain what I mean there. In the 20th century, companies would attract customers based on developing a product. They'd start with the product, and then they would develop a relationship with the customer. And then they would think about how they could actually develop another product and get more customers as a method of customer acquisition. In the 21st century, I think it's a little different. I think it's now all about customer-centric aspects. Let me give you an example. Facebook, you brought it up. It's a very interesting company. It's amazing. It's already the third largest search engine in the world. Now, Mark Zuckerberg did not start out to create the third largest engine in the world. As a college student in 2004, he needed a date. He actually formed Facebook to be able to meet people. But then he did something that 21st century companies do. He found out what other features his customers wanted. And in so doing, he created more and more and more of those customer-centric features. The result, as Mark is getting ready to celebrate his company's 7th birthday, he's a $75 billion business. He has built the third largest engine, search engine in the world, using a very cost-effective, cheap customer acquisition model. Now, this isn't just for social media type companies. This is for mainline product companies as well. Apple is a perfect example. Apple recently exceeded the valuation of Microsoft. There are more people who want to buy the stock of Apple and value it more than they value the ownership of Microsoft. Now, Apple's another example that started out as a little computer company. They certainly are not a little computer company now. Apple has created a community of raving fans, little Apple people. Apple people love to talk about Apple. And Apple nurtured that community to find out what other products the customers wanted. That raving fan club is what has driven Apple from a simple computer company into a mobile device company, a lifestyle computing company. And that's what's driving investors to be so excited about the value that they ascribe to Apple compared to Microsoft. Now, what's unique about both of these situations is that they have both leveraged social media as a business tool to be able to accomplish low-cost customer acquisition. This is all about a growth business strategy. Now, I don't want you to be confused that I'm talking about how to get SEO traffic. I'm not talking about how to get keywords. I don't even understand that stuff. But what I'm looking at is the impact that this social media insights that we're talking about right now relate to the importance of what it takes to be a successful, sustainable, growing company in the 21st century. So having said that, it's all about understanding your customers. And there are probably 3 questions that we need to ask. The first question about how are you actually today attracting your customers? What is your business model for being able to low cost acquire customers? The first thing I would ask you is, well, how much are you spending on your customer acquisition process? Who will share with me what you have in your budget, or the kind of statistics or categories that you include when you're talking about acquiring new customers? Phil, what are the things that you do for acquiring new customers?
For acquiring new customers, just find new ways to market to them. I mean,
Marketing and advertising is a huge line on the agenda.
Definitely.
Absolutely. What else? Rick, what do you do?
Well, I think it goes along the same lines as Phil. It's finding unique ways, you know, to market, you know, knowing the industry, knowing, you know, just being well-rounded, knowledgeable. And,
So you probably have an advertising campaign. I think you
Yeah.
even talked about conferences in
Right.
your old business.
Sure.
All right? And trade shows, all right? And there are probably a couple of other things that go into that budget that, as companies, we use to be able to attract customers. If you were to add all of the dollars that you spend on acquiring a customer, and you considered your revenue to be 100% of the number that you are working with, what percent do you think your organization is spending on all of these different activities to capture customers? John, you work with a lot of different companies.
Well, I would say for an established product like Coca-Cola, marketing maybe 10%, and then for something like services like cable or something like that, which is recurring over the years, probably more like you know, initially be a greater expense, maybe 50%, but then as you have the customer for years, it would be less so.
Good insight. A lot of companies will determine how much they're going to spend based on how long they're going to have a long relationship with the customer. And also, John pointed out that there's a big range. Companies spend anywhere from 10, 15, 30% of their entire revenue on just attracting customers. This is why our conversation today is so critical. Because as a business growth strategy, being able to lower the cost of your customer acquisition is what it takes to be able to be a sustainable, fast-growing business. So that's only the first question we have to ask. The second question is, so who are the customers that you would like? Let's face it, if you're going to be reaching out to a community, if you're going to be reaching out to people, they might as well be people that you like. They're the kind of people that, if you have to spend time away from your family and people that you really love, who would you be willing to be working with? Getting clear on that is pretty important. This is what I mean when I say customers are not statistics. They're human beings. And they live on the Maslow pyramid, just like your friends do. At the very lowest level, they all have survival needs. At a little bit higher level, they all have wants. At the highest level, they all have desires. Identifying who is the community that you really want to be part of and enjoy, and where you will be valued most, is part of a very critical business model consideration. That takes us to the third question about I have to think about what that third question might be. That third question is where you're going to find them, right? You already know that this is about people who value you. You already know these are humans, and they live in a community because in the 21st century, it's the age-old tribe. But now you got to find out where they hang out, because that's where you have to go, and you have to reach them. So all this by way of saying, for purposes of driving your growth strategy in the 21st century, we need to realize this is no longer a product-centric focus for customer acquisition. It's a customer-centric focus. And that means that we really have to do three things in order to be able to achieve a low-cost, sustainable customer acquisition. One, we have to define who our customer is. Two, we have to research where they hang out. And three, We have to engage them. It's all about engagement that creates the greatest value. So if you're interested in growing your business and having a lot of that extra money that you've been spending, the 10, 20, 30, 50%, and dropping that down to the bottom line as profitability, then I think there's quite a bit that we can learn from social media as a business case. So if you're interested, let's see if we can apply those 3 questions to you. 1, define your customer. 2, research where they hang out. And 3, engage them. We'll do that in the second half of our session.